Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. If everybody could please take their seats. This event is going to be both in person and streamed. So we do have something that starts at 12 o'clock, our introduction. Thank you.
Welcome, friends, to the 2020 Living the Legacy fundraising event. My name is Nydia Hahn. I'm an anchor reporter for 6ABC here in Philadelphia, and it is my great pleasure to serve as your MC. A heartfelt thanks to all of you who are joining us in person and via our live stream from across the country and around the world. As you know, this is a hybrid event, and I am honored to join you virtually today. A few years ago, I was asked in an interview to name one historical person I admire. And my answer was Pearl Buck. I wrote, yes, she was a Pulitzer and Nobel Prize winning author, but I admire her most because she was an extraordinary humanitarian and activist who dedicated much of her life to advocating for Black people and other marginalized groups, helping Asian American children, and calling for America to be anti-racist. That interview was in 2017. So imagine my surprise when just 2 years later, Pearl S. Buck International asked if I would accept its invitation to be its 2019 Woman of Influence. I remain tremendously humbled by that honor and frankly shocked by the invitation, so much so that I've considered putting the physical award I received under lock and key because I'm sure I'm going to get that call one of these days that says, oh, you made a mistake. That wasn't meant for you. But putting its questionable judgment of last year's choice for Woman of Influence aside, this is a truly incredible organization. It is keeping the legacy of Pearl S. Buck alive by continuing to bridge cultures, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, encourage activism, help children, provide humanitarian aid, and really change lives through education. So I'm so happy to be able to support Pearl S. Buck International and grateful to see so many of you here doing the same. The theme of this year's Living the Legacy event is What America Means to Me. And in this time of racial reckoning, in this moment when we have the opportunity and responsibility to make our voices heard, to make a choice for our country by voting in November, I cannot think of a more critical time for each of us to dig deep, to search our souls to answer that question. What does America mean to me? I think we all equate America with freedom, right? But what does that mean? Pearl Buck said, and I quote, "By freedom, I mean men and women of every race and color are living unafraid in a commonwealth, a nation, where the common good of peoples is of the first importance, and not the maintenance of a class or a race or a nation at the expense of others." Pearl Buck wrote that in 1942 in her book, What America Means to Me. She also wrote, "I wish we could cease to hate each other. Our country is based upon diversity of race and upon freedom of belief, and this is our chief claim to be unique and great." Let the loyal men and women of America today prove themselves as Americans. Let each of us say, it does not matter to me what color a person's skin is, black or white or yellow. It does not matter whether a person is Jew or Gentile, Catholic or Protestant, man or woman. If he or she believes in freedom and in human equality, she is a good American, and I will trust that person. In such trust, we find our unity. And while Pearl Buck believed that we could really do more in this country and that we have a lot of work to do, she also said, in spite of our discriminatory behavior towards some of our people, here in America, more than in any other country, the concept of freedom of mankind is still the clearest and strongest. This, I think, is because here have lived so many men and women free enough to be able to speak out again and again for freedom for all, at times when such freedom was threatened. Pearl Buck also knew that America's work will never be done, that we have to be vigilant to continue to shape and define our country to be the best that it can be. She said, "For America's strength is drawn from all peoples, and her future depends on us all. We must teach our children, native-born and foreign-born alike, that there is no final America yet, that they are making America too, by what they themselves are, regardless of what others are." So in the name of Pearl Buck, I invite all of you to bring your unique selves to the table, to allow your diversity, your roots to inform who you are today. That is what America means to me. It means that no matter how bleak the state of affairs may seem amid the pandemic, amid so much division and hate in this country, I have faith and I have hope that we can and will continue to come together to do better and to do what's right and to protect each other, and to let the gifts of our ancestors enrich who we are as Americans. That is what America means to me. I invite all of you who are there at Pearl S. Buck International to fill out one of the paper stars on your table with a sentence or word about what America means to you. I also invite those of you at home to do the same. Please enjoy your lunch and this slideshow presentation on what America means to me, and our program will continue in just a moment with President and CEO Anna Katz.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming today, both virtually and in person, to spend time together at Pearl S. Buck International. My name is Anna Katz, and I will soon hit my 6-month anniversary as CEO and President of Pearl S. Buck International. I am so honored to be here with you today. Later in the program, I will share with you a little bit about myself and my vision for the future of our organization. Right now, I want to introduce to you the next segment of our program. As you may know, the theme for today's event is What America Means to Me. It is an opportunity to reflect on and rekindle the passion we have for this wonderful country of ours, to contemplate both our strengths and our weaknesses. There's also a subcontext to this theme. When looking at our current conditions, there was a consensus amongst staff that there is something sorely missing in our everyday lives, namely, the ability to agree to disagree and enter into dialogue with those that have differing points of view. I can recall a time not too long ago when I can argue with Democrats, Republicans, sisters, fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, and friends. And I was able to agree to disagree on a variety of issues. President George W. Bush, a Republican, captured this sentiment over the summer during John Lewis's funeral. When he reflected on his relationship with this Democratic congressman and civil rights leader, he said, "John and I had our disagreements, of course," and then he chuckled a little bit. "But in the America that John fought for, and the America I believe in, differences of opinion are inevitable and evidence of democracy in action." I just thought that was just profound. This is really what I think America is all about. Dialogue, this critical human faculty, allows us in some cases to agree on general principles and policies and disagree on particulars, or to disagree in general and agree on particulars. The process sharpens our intellect and bridges distances. But in today's society, in which every issue, political or not, feels hyperpolarized, this now seems impossible. But this does not have to be inevitable. To remedy the situation, we look to Pearl S. Buck's wisdom. It seems that Miss Buck surely had skills, specifically in the ability to agree to disagree. This is keenly demonstrated as she articulates her interaction with a close friend, Islana Robeson, in her book, The American Argument. Islana Robeson was an African-American woman, anthropologist, author, actor, and civil rights activist. She was also a close friend of Pearl S. Buck. Two American women, both mature, successful, and holding no grudges against life, discussed their own country from differing and sometimes opposing, but always basic points of view. We share with you today an enactment of their dialogue. We hope it inspires you to begin your own dialogues and find your own abilities to agree to disagree. Before I invite Pearl and Islana to join us, I want you to know if at any points during their dialogue that you feel uncomfortable, that is all part of the process. We need to learn how to come out on the other side of uncomfortability, recognize differences, and reunite. Also, you may want to think about the similarities and differences the times portrayed. We are portraying 1948 and 1949, and we should compare that to our current times. Thank you very much. Now, please help me welcome Pearl and Islana.
Hello, Islanda. Islanda gave me great help in writing this book. Every time I began a sentence by saying, "in our country," she stopped me firmly. "Which country?" she demanded. "Your America and mine are not the same." At first, I found this interruption irritating. To define one's terms before one gets a chance to talk is to put a bridle on a horse. But I soon learned to be grateful for it. When I speak of America, I must define my terms because there is not one America. Maybe there is not any America at all. Maybe we are just a hodgepodge of people living upon one piece of earth through the accident of wandering forefathers. They came here and spawned us and died, leaving us without ancestry. To go back 5 or 6 generations does not mean a real ancestry. My friend Sung Shi Sing goes back 70 generations in his modest way. Maybe we are fish out of water. Anyway, here we are. Aslanda is waiting attentively for me to begin. So let me ask you, Aslanda, what do you think when you think about being born in America?
When I think about being born in America, I remember that I am officially described on my birth certificate as child, female, colored. In the United States, that earmarks a baby for discrimination, segregation, and injustice throughout life. Unless our society wants and intends to do something against babies because of their color, there's no reason to mark them down as colored or white. One of the earliest things I remember is playing with a little boy who lived across the street from us in Washington. We lived in a mixed neighborhood then. It was about the year 1900. The boy was white, but I had not yet realized there was any color difference between us. I am afraid I was a very independent, even sassy child. I always defended what I considered were my rights, and I still do. One day, while we were playing, I wanted my turn at something, a game or toy. I don't remember exactly what it was. I had waited for my turn, but he would not let me have it. I insisted, and he got angry and called me a nasty name. I asked him what that meant. He said it meant something bad and something black. That infuriated me, for I knew I was not bad, and I wasn't black.
In the same year of 1900, when Aslanda first was told about her color by a white boy in Washington, I had my first great fear in China. White people there were being killed by brown people. They were being killed because some white people had done great wrong to the Chinese. And anyone who was white stood in danger because of what a few bad white people had done. To me, then 8 years old, it was a frightful revelation that children could be killed because of their parents, who in turn were killed because somewhere far away, other and entirely strange white people had been cruel and wicked. From that day on, I felt less secure in my life. If such a thing could happen in China, where little children were much loved, it could happen anywhere. Let's talk about opportunity, Aslanda. As an American, do you feel that there is unlimited opportunity here for anybody of color?
I think there could be, but I think you have to insist on having the opportunity. And when you get it, you have to deliver. There are a lot of people here in this country actively and successfully preventing other people from getting normal opportunity.
I cannot imagine anybody preventing Aslanda from getting anything that she wants. I believe that if she had the chance to be born again into her own choice, she would still be herself. I'm sure she would like less difficulty in her life. She might, for all I know, prefer to be tall and slim. But I do not believe it would occur to her to want to be white. Aslanda, have we Americans real race prejudice?
No, I don't think so. The reason I think we haven't is because there are too many organized efforts to create it and keep it up. We have to make Jim Crow laws and insist upon them. We have to have real estate agreements and insist upon them. It takes alert, consistent effort to preserve this so-called race prejudice, which is really economic at base. It is to the economic interests of persons or groups, mostly economic groups, to keep up these barriers of race. They have to work hard to keep them up because the barriers are artificial, not real or natural. Prejudice is not innate, it is not inherited. It is taught, it is acquired. We Negroes are no longer surprised to find just before an election that suddenly everybody is interested in us as a group. There's a lot of talk about giving us our rights, but nothing ever comes of it. And we are no longer misled by it. In the current campaign, for instance, there is an unusual amount of interest being shown in many groups because this election is going to be a hard fight. Truman, who could have done a lot about civil rights along the way, suddenly made a grand gesture in setting up a civil rights commission and made a lot of capital out of the report of this commission. And there is this elegant report on the state of education in our nation. Reports, commissions, congressional investigations, and so what? All to impress the veterans, the young people, various minorities. We Negroes are not investigations that get nowhere. They have all petered out after elections. Anyway, every fool knows the state of the union. We don't need any more committees, investigations, and reports. What we need is action, correction, and plenty of it, and fast.
So where do we lose our sense of human relationships?
Well, maybe we never had it. We began in this country with slavery, remember? It's impossible to develop human relationships or to keep them if we had them under slavery. Slavery itself is a violation of human relationships and sets up false standards. When people first came to America, they were interested in finding freedom from oppression for themselves or in building a better life for themselves. And they are still doing just that, or trying to. So now we are on the merry-go-round of building more and bigger houses, cars, telephones, and gadgets. We are obsessed with the making of things and accumulation of things for ourselves. We must make up our minds whether we are going to continue making a full-time career of accumulating more things, or whether we will stop at some reasonable point and examine our human relationships. Now today, in these frightening days of 1948, I feel sure of one shining truth that is at present very much hidden under the bushel of loud, continuous propaganda. The truth that the peace of our world depends upon whether or not we Americans are going to stop ranting and panting and worrying about other less important and complicated, unrewarding matters and turn our attention and efforts toward the important, rewarding business of improving our human relations. If we Americans begin here and now to practice Americanism, and it is laid down in our beautiful and famous freedom document, if we treat all Americans and the people of the world as human beings to be accepted, I mean, we have to accept them anyway, they are here. Studied, understood, considered, respected as human beings, regardless of race, color, sex, or religious, political, economic, or cultural systems, then we will have surely laid the solid foundation for peace. Peace within our individual selves, peace in our country, and peace in the world.
So, Aslanda, tell me, who makes up the minds in a democracy?
We, the people, we're supposed to. In theory, we sit down and we work out what we need, what we want, then select one of ourselves, our representative, to see that we get it. But is that what we do here in America? No. Here we have the spectacle of professional politicians saying one thing and doing another, term after term. So much so that the phrase election promises is well understood by us all. The American people seem to have given over their affairs and the conduct of their country, their lives, and future, and now the conduct of world affairs to these professional politicians. It's a pity. I'm pretty cynical about it all. I say, If that's what the American people want, all right. I'm only one person, and who am I to tell them what they want? Maybe they know. I do very strongly object to all their bleeding all over the face of the earth about how democratic they are. Democratic indeed, with our staggering minority problems, with the corruption in our domestic and foreign affairs, and with the politicians, the military, the big businesses running the country and trying to run the world. We have the nerve to say we're democratic. What I can never get over is the fact that American people all over the is the fact that people all over the world see clearly and understand the state of affairs in American life, but Americans themselves refuse to admit it and characteristically refuse to face their contradictions.
Perhaps Islanda is right. Indeed, I think she is. We Americans lack balance. And one reason we do is because we have no proper relationship between the young and the old. Competition does its evil work here too. Competition instead of cooperation. Islanda has the freedom of soul that comes from a sense of righteousness in herself and her people. It is not they who are the world's most hated kind. It is not they who are oppressing others. Islanda can afford to criticize and to rebel. When I do so, it means a profound self-criticism and a rendering of the spirit. It is my own and I who are wrong before the world's people. For me, all the fair and endearing aspects of my country are darkened by this knowledge. At any moment of joy and pride, I can fall into an abyss of despair. Are not our people kind and good? I have never seen better people in some ways than my neighbors, my kinfolk, my townsmen and women who live upon this piece of earth we call the United States. The germ of true democracy is here. Not all of us have the courage to speak against wrong, but some of us have, enough so that the powers of evil dare not imprison us. Islanda is not a simple person, but she is direct and intensely practical. I avoided Soviet Russia talks with Islanda. She's not a communist. I would not have wanted to spend hours with her had she been one. For every communist I have ever met in any country has been a simple person whose thinking was fairly stereotyped.
You know, it is surprising, interesting, and revealing that Pearl believes that she would not have wanted to spend hours with me if I were a communist. Here I am, Islanda Cordoza Good Robeson, a human being whom she likes, respects, and trusts. No matter what anyone may say or believe about me, I am nevertheless the same as Landa. And now here's Pearl, an intelligent, experienced, and sympathetic, wholly superior human being. And she says she would have slammed a door between us if she had believed I was a communist, whether I was or not. This kind of prejudice, which we Americans have been taught, staggers me at every point. It crops up in unexpected places, in the most unlikely people. It proves what a thorough job has been done by propagandists on so many different levels. If Americans continue to slam doors around them against their fellow men of different colors, religions, economic and political beliefs, national origin, station in life, why then, very soon indeed, they will find themselves all by themselves in a badly ventilated room because they slammed all the doors. There, they will first become lonesome and sick and will finally disintegrate.
Had you been a communist, Islanda, I would have not slammed a door between us. I closed no door between any human being and myself. But I would not have chosen to write this book with you. There are religious, political, military, and even economic systems which do change the personality. Were you communist, you would not be the same person I know as Islanda. Were you the devotee of a possessive church? Were you absorbed in self-devotion to money-making? Were you subject to a military machine? you would be changed. When the South is yielded up to the creed or cause or a system, the personality changes. It is no longer free. But can't we work for freedom? Isn't that an American right?
Maybe you can, but I can't.
But you do, Islanda, all the time.
How? I take it our government is still the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. How do I fight them? On the contrary, how do I go around the country fighting for them? And fighting against whom? Against some of our so-called public servants, servants of the government who keep insisting upon denying me and a lot of other citizens our rights? I always stay well within the law, both the letter and spirit of the law. I admit that maybe some of our more reactionary servants of the government would like to put me in jail for these activities. And from time to time, the FBI has been interested in me, but they couldn't very well put me in prison without making themselves ridiculous. Being the wife of a celebrity, there is some publicity value attached to me, and people might be interested in what happened to me and why.
Suppose you had no publicity value.
Well, then I could be lynched tomorrow in some parts of the South for my activities.
But our government would never do anything to you.
No, in lynching areas, isn't the sheriff the representative of the government? Sheriffs sometimes connive and even assist at lynching. We had a particularly unpleasant experience in the West some years ago when I was out on a concert tour with Paul and Larry. We arrived at a large town and we were met at the railroad station by the local concert manager. He told us that we were not going to be able to go to the hotel at which we had reservations as planned, but to the home of a very nice colored family. Now, we know that there was segregation in this town and that the Negro section was a slum. I got very angry about the whole business and told the manager, who was white, that we would definitely go to the hotel, that it was charming of the family whom we did not know to offer us hospitality. And we were grateful for it, but we were very tired and we would just like to go to the facilities of the hotel. The manager hemmed and hawed and finally admitted that the hotel would not take us because we were colored. I said they had confirmed our reservation. Yes, but no buts. No, not this time, I told them. No hotel, no concert, period. But you can't cancel your concert. You have a contract and we can sue you, said the manager. I'm glad you understand the law out here, I answered, because we have a contract with the hotel in the form of a confirmed reservation and will sue too. We have a very good lawyer in New York, and so let's just turn it all over to the legal department and forget the whole thing until we meet in court. The manager went to the telephone to call the hotel to see what they could do. We knew the concert hall had been sold out for weeks in advance, and we felt sure the local people would not cancel it. Well, the hotel agreed to take us after all, and we got the suite we had reserved. The hotel manager asked us to use the freight elevator and not eat in the public dining room. The hotel manager and the local concert manager apologized for the necessity of all this and said the other guests would leave if we accepted Negroes. Later, when we came downstairs in the passenger elevator and passed through the lobby en route to the concert hall, we were delayed for more than 15 minutes by the hotel guests who swarmed about Paul, greeted him, requesting autographs, requesting special favorites for encores, inviting him to supper following the concert. I shall always remember a man and wife and their 3 children, a charming family, who said to Paul, "Mr. Robeson, we came to the hotel for dinner, hoping to catch a glimpse of you in the dining room. It's very exclusive and selfish of you to eat in your rooms." These were some of the guests who'd leave if the hotel accepted Negroes.
Islanda, how does it happen that such persons as this hotel man gets into these seats of power, high and low throughout the country?
I suppose because the average person is afraid or can't afford to take a stand against this kind of thing. And so it keeps on happening and finally freezes into a pattern that comes to be accepted. Then, when some of us try to break the pattern, we're told people would never stand for that. They're not accustomed to that. Very few people can afford to protest to challenge the pattern. Some of those who can afford to will not, for fear of losing what they have. We are very lucky. We can afford to, and we do.
It was at that point that I realized that we should call our book The American Argument. Our country now is in a state where I realize that we must argue. We must discuss. I am very conservative in many ways because I was reared in conservative China, where revolution was looked upon as foolish and wasteful.
The fact that you feel you must argue, that you must do something in spite of your conservatism, is an indication of the seriousness of our time. There should be a feeling that we should not only just argue, but that we must change.
These are heart-searching days for me. I know Islanda is telling the truth as she sees it, and that is not easy for her. She loves our country in her way as much as I do. But my way is not hers. I am slowly beginning to see that. Hers is a deep, bitter, strong love, shot through with pain. She has suffered at the hands of the country that she loves. Through no fault of her own, she is part of evil and shame. I, on the contrary, have received only benefits from being an American. It is my own fault that I am not content with this. I might, if I would, live a complete life in ease and pleasure, unaware of anything wrong inside of my country. Our attitude towards Americans who are Negro invalidates our democracy, to ourselves and to other peoples, most of all whom are colored. It invalidates our democracy to ourselves because prejudice makes us fail to see a human being for what he is. Prejudice compels us to lump whole groups together as being beyond sympathy or understanding. This hardens the heart, not only to the despised ones, but towards all people. The heart cannot act upon the good principle of love. It is forced to divide itself to love only those few whose faces are thus, and to refuse love to all except the chosen. Islanda and I have differed profoundly. It is impossible for us to agree upon our own country. No, not just our country. We have differed on the whole world. The conditions that make it impossible for us to see our country the same are conditions that hold in this world. Wherever Islanda and I might live, she and I would differ. We Americans must apply our wisdom to our world. We must not believe only in ourselves or that only we are right, when we are but one group among many in the world. We must be American and realize that only by group thinking, group discussion, group agreement, and compromise can we arrive at a state of mutual benefit and accord. So, Islanda, I have one last question for you today. Can you see any advantage to being an American?
No, but I am an American. As American as anybody else in this country. So there it is. It's like being a member of a family. You don't have to like your family if they aren't nice people, although you're supposed to. When they are mean and selfish and greedy and take advantage of you very often, how can you like them if you have any sense? But it's your family and you're stuck with it. Of course, you defend it against outsiders and you do what you can for it. Well, that's the way I feel about America. It's the most basic reasoning, the most basic feeling. When Americans treat me and my people like Americans, then I like it and find advantage and pride in being American, but not before.
What an enlightening and inspiring conversation. So many lessons that still need to be learned and applied today. Thank you, ladies, for bringing Islanda and Pearl Buck to life for us this afternoon. We really, really appreciate it. You did such a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Anna, we thank you for your leadership in bringing your beautiful, albeit at times incredibly challenging, personal experiences to Pearl S. Buck International. You are an inspiration as well. And I absolutely agree with you that one of the greatest gifts of our country is the ability to disagree. And certainly in this climate, that is a critical gift we should all open, unwrap, and figure out ways to use within our own circles and communities.
The next element that I am responsible for in this program is the vision I have for this organization, and to talk to you a little bit about who I am. It is with great pride and humility that I stand before you today to promote the legacy of Pearl S. Buck. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Anna Katz. I am the president and CEO of Pearl S. Buck International. My position at Pearl S. Buck International represents a culmination of my life's journey, both professionally and personally. I started my career in the nonprofit field, creating and managing organizations in healthcare, HIV and AIDS, domestic violence, and women's empowerment. Most recently, I had the honor and the privilege to serve as a Foreign Service Officer in several countries around the world. Working on programs designed to empower Afghan women is by far one of the highlights of my overseas experience. Afghanistan is known to be the most difficult country in the world to be born female. What I learned from the courageous Afghan women I worked with is that even in the harshest terrain, beauty, grace, and strength could flourish. I have devoted my life to fighting for civil rights, women's empowerment, and the rights of vulnerable populations. Intercultural awareness is woven into the fabric of my personal life as well. My family comprises a variety of races and ethnic backgrounds. I was married to a Black Kenyan until he passed away almost a decade ago. Our relationship existed at a time when it was common to be confronted on the street about why I was with a Black man and how I was a traitor to my race or even mentally ill. After fighting back many times in the only way a Philly girl knows how to, I realized I may be putting my husband's life at risk and learned how to bite my tongue. As part of an intercultural and interracial couple, I have many stories about how we overcame our differences that I can share with you at another point. I have 2 daughters, one of whom is gay, and 2 grandchildren. There is not an ism or a phobia that I have not challenged, engaged in, and fought for in my work and at home. My years of experience serving vulnerable populations, especially women and children, both domestically and abroad, align with Pearl S. Buck International's mission. I am humbled by her life, legacy, and everything she accomplished. A priority for me is to promote Pearl S. Buck's legacy nationally, especially in the areas of her life that are unfamiliar to the general population. This includes her civil rights and women's empowerment activism, her advocacy for removing the stigma associated with having children with different abilities, her support for immigration, and her promotion of positive East-West relations. My goal is to establish relationships with individuals and organizations that support work in those areas. As far as programmatic goals for the organization, I am determined to increase youth participation in our programs by at least 20%, by expanding our global leadership program and keeping our programs relevant to the times. I want to make Welcome Workplace the premier intercultural, anti-racism, and diversity training program throughout the region. Provide ongoing relevant exhibitions and increase participation in Pearl S. Buck's House. I want to utilize the new events and conference center as a sustainable revenue generating process for the organization and to be a center that engages in dialogue about cultural, social, and other relevant issues. I plan to increase our international programs by advancing child sponsorship options in other Asian countries, in India, and African countries. A tall order, I believe is doable. I appreciate your support for Pearl S. Buck International and understand to meet the goals I outlined, we need your continued support. I must say, in my many years of experience of working in the nonprofit field, I have never seen a more dedicated base of supporters to the mission of an organization than Pearl S. Buck International's volunteer and donor team. Again, thank you for your commitment and dedication. In closing, I wish you and yours good health and high spirits during these difficult times. Thank you.
And now we would like to present our Living the Legacy video.
If you ask me if I believe that Pearl Bucks would be relevant to what's taking place now, absolutely. She spoke out with a heart for all people, and that heart is needed now, so she would be really in the midst of this fight that we have.
My name is Shashma Patel, and I was a participant in the Welcome Workplace workshops. I want people to be able to come together and understand each other. For me, it's always been about engaging with others and learning about different cultures, different perspectives, because there's always something else to learn or to know, and that can change how we do things. I do think the Welcome Workplace program is very important. I've participated in it a number of times, and each time I've learned something different. I've learned different pieces of myself, of maybe biases that I have or that I'm not aware of, and also how to recognize when those things are coming up within me during different circumstances. So it's been a wonderful way for me to learn about myself and just how I interact with the world, and areas where I can maybe grow and learn a little bit more. I think Pearl S. Buck International should encourage people to engage in difficult conversations because it can help open lines of communication, and it can help people just see things in a slightly different way. What stops people from having challenging conversations, I think it's fear. They're not sure how people will react. They might feel that they could be punished. They might lose status. They might lose what they have, and they're not sure if that's what they want to do. So it's difficult for people to open up and have conversations that they're not comfortable with unless they were given an environment or a forum where they can have that conversation with no penalties or obstacles.
My name is Sophie Severiano, and I'm a facilitator for the Pearl S. Buck Taking Action Tour. So this past year, I was fortunate enough to give a tour to a group of differently abled people, and this tour was very emotional and very eye-opening for me as a facilitator for the Taking Action Tour in the large library, where we discuss race and we discuss the racial segregation and discrimination and how Pearl Buck fought that in her own lifetime. And the girl with Down syndrome, again, was very vocal about how she felt it was unfair that people were differently treated because of their skin color. And she expressed to me that her deep friend and her boyfriend was African American. And she said that she could not understand why somebody would be treated differently because of their skin tone. And for me, that was so innocent that she was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you judge somebody like that? I'm judged. She says that she felt the pressures of discrimination, not necessarily because of her skin, but because of her disability.
My name is Trinity Dandabotla, and I'm a graduate of the Global Leadership Program. I wanted to join the Global Leadership Program to not only build my communication skills and build leadership skills, but also to meet different people from different backgrounds, from different schools, different communities, because I do believe that everyone has something different to bring to the table, and by being able to work with those kinds of people, I thought that I would be able to kind of learn their perspective and what their outlook on life is. One of the most important things that I learned is that, not everyone is like us, and we need to keep in mind the different backgrounds that people come from when we talk to them or, discuss any topic with them. So, ever since kindergarten, the golden rule that they teach every single kindergartner or preschooler is, treat others the way you want to be treated, be respectful, be kind to everyone, right? And yet, kids grow, they go through high school, and they become a part of the community, and we're still seeing the same problems. And the same fundamental golden rules still apply, but it's what we were taught when we were younger, people suddenly, I guess, are forgetting to apply those rules and those principles. We live in a community and a nation where diversity is one of the most beautiful things that has happened. No other nation in the world is as diverse as the United States. And I think it's important for people to realize that it's okay if the person sitting next to you is not exactly like you. It's important for them to realize that we need to respect people for who they are and their physical appearance, the color of their skin, the color of their hair, the color of their eyes, doesn't matter, because we're all the same from the inside. And I think that we need to learn how to respect that. And I think Pearl Buck is a great example and role model for this generation.
My name's Ian Shea, and I'm a child sponsor.
My name's Sam Shea, and I'm a child sponsor.
I think learning about Pearl Buck is important. I don't know how much my friends and other people know about her, but the way she thought about the world really influences how I operate. I just am more grateful and look at everyone as equal, and I don't really see why people aren't always treated the same way.
I think it's important to help people who maybe are not as fortunate as other people, because it's important to lift everyone up.
By sponsoring Paterno, who lives in the Philippines, we've learned that we're all children growing up in the world together, and it doesn't matter your circumstances. Children always look for the good in life and everything like that. Yeah, it's very important to learn about different places and the culture of people, because even though the world's so big, it's small at the same time. And it's important to understand everyone.
I really think it's important to get to know someone who lives in a different place than you, because you get to learn so much about different places, and also in learning about those differences, you also learn about a lot of similarities that you have, and that everyone in the world may not be quite so different, and we're all just here together, and that's what's cool about it. So I thought it was really interesting when I started writing to Paterno, I always thought it would be so different in the Philippines instead of in the US. But the more I got writing to him, I found out how though the scenarios are different, the situation, things are much more similar than I had previously thought. We look forward to a lot of the same things in life, and we like to do a lot of the same things, for example, play basketball with our friends and stuff like that. I think it's important to learn about Pearl Buck and her legacy, because she just always had this kind of optimistic quality to the way she tried to constantly help people and make life better for a lot of people. And I think that really translates to a lot of how I look at the world and how I look at life, and I think that's really cool.
And if I can just sow a seed in somebody else's life, like Pearl Buck, and all the things that she did and all the things we're trying to do to maintain the legacy that she so fought hard for in her life, then our lives are much better. And we take our focus upon ourselves, because somebody's always worse off than we are. Somebody has to be a voice for others who are disenfranchised. So our voices need to be heard, our time must be given, our resources must be given. And ultimately, when we do that, then we become part of the solution, not the problem.
I love all those voices. So many young people, especially continuing the legacy of Pearl Buck in such important ways. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Felicia Grasti, Pearl S. Buck International Board of Directors Treasurer and keynote speaker today. Felicia has done so much to advance diversity and inclusion and really get people to move in and be more inclusive. And I am really looking forward to hearing her remarks today. Felicia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Grasti, and I am the current board treasurer of Pearl S. Buck International. First, I want to start by reading a passage from What America Means to Me, and then afterwards, you'll see a short video. Let us consider the world of children at this moment, the world we must save. In our country, there are children growing up in circumstances which cannot produce a peaceful world. Think of the moment which faces every colored mother and father, the moment where their child has to know that he is doomed to eternal handicaps because of his color. There is not a single colored parent, unless they are imbecile, who does not dread that moment, who is not saddened by it and degraded by it. I know, for I have heard them talking about it, dreading it before it came, sorrowful after it had come. Imagine it for yourselves. How can you explain it to the child? How can you excuse yourself that you ever gave him birth? There are still others here, Jews, Poles, Hungarians, and others, differing in different sections of our country where prejudice against foreigner varies. But these can escape at least by moving away from the region of prejudice. There is no escape for a colored child. He is born black if he has a drop of colored blood in him. Can these children be saved? I'm not allowing him to be a kid because I have to explain everything that's happening in the world. Everything that's happening in the world, and that is not fair to him. He should be able to go out and play and be a kid like everyone else. He shouldn't have to grow up so fast. He shouldn't have to do any of that. So it breaks my heart when I have to take more of that childhood away when things like George Floyd happens. You know, I can't keep that away from him. He has to know how to operate just to go outside. He has to know how to react when he comes across police. He has to know how to react when he comes across a group of people that seem to want to hurt him. He has to know all of that. So outside of being, okay, be careful going out, I have to say, make sure you tell me where you are at all times. Don't go too far. Don't go here. There's so many stipulations in it. I feel like it takes away from him being a kid. You have to give me a moment. Every time I watch that, I get the same reaction. So when I was asked to be a part of the video, initially I wasn't told about what it was going to be about. I just was asked to be a part of it and to come and have an authentic conversation. I couldn't prepare because no questions were given, so that was a little nerve-wracking for me, but I was all in. So I came. Once I got to the shoot, then that's when I was told that this conversation would be about what America means to me. Everything started going well. I answered my questions. When it came about me, it was so easy to answer the questions. Then the question of my son came up. And as you see in the video, that's when my emotions came out. All parents want their children to be safe and to live a fulfilling life, to thrive in America, the beautiful. And parents are also fearful of the uncontrollable situations their children will face. Their first fight, their first heartbreak, the known and the unknown. There's an extra level that some people have to prepare to withstand. Some people have to be fearful of and prepare children the best way possible. That is to prepare them to withstand the hate that others may have because of their differences, whether it's in the color of their skin or in their beliefs. with all the joys I've had for having Xander and him being a part of our lives, I knew when he was born that he would have to fight that invisible and also visible monster called prejudice. So the question becomes, how do you prepare a child to navigate and to stand up to hate when their biggest concern should be, how long can I go outside and play? From the very beginning, my husband and I thought of many ways that we can help and assist him in getting ready for this world. From things of like choosing the daycare that he goes to make sure that it was diverse and that he was experiencing all cultures, and even down to as simple as his name. Most people have heard part of the story as far as how I named my son Xander, but the part they usually don't hear from me is why, another reason why. And it was a little more strategic. I had to make sure that his name would get him in 2 doors for better opportunities. Just to talk a minute about my son, he has such a kind heart, and I always love being around him. He thinks everyone is his friend, and sometimes he'll see someone and say, "Oh, that's my friend so-and-so, hi." And a couple of times I'll ask him the question, "Well, how do you know that little girl or little boy?" And he'll say, "Oh, they went to my school and they're my friend." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine, that's amazing." So, and he just has this big smile when he talks about it. So it warms my heart because he sees people for who they are, no matter if they're different or not. But also, I get knots in my stomach every time we had that conversation, because I know eventually he would have to face those people that did not think of him as a friend. It hurts my heart because I know that kids should be kids. I want him to hold on to his childhood. He is deserving of that. We all are. But we have to give him what I've called the talk. The talk is all about hate, all about prejudice. And at such a young age, I can never understand how to start that conversation, or why should I start that conversation. So we've talked a little bit here and there about some of the things that have gone on in the world. It was easy to start because as he started school during Black History Month, he would come home and he would be so excited to talk about what he learned. He learned about Martin Luther King, he learned about Rosa Parks, he learned about Frederick Douglass, all of these wonderful people that played such an instrumental part in the Civil Rights Movement. But as we sat down and listened to him, we always had to talk a little bit more, had to expand a little bit on those people along with other people that have played major roles in our human rights and our civil rights. But in addition to that, we also had to tell him what they had to face to have that fight for us and our rights. And we can't sugarcoat. That is not me being the perfect parent. We cannot sugarcoat, we cannot skinny anything down. So as we started to talk a little bit more about Black History Month and the people that helped us, then he started asking some questions. The questions became, well, why was Martin Luther King killed? You know, why don't they want to play with me? What's wrong with my skin color? Yeah, and those are questions I still don't have the answers to. So as he became older and more strife happened in the world, and I could hear the anger and frustration in his voice. And the whole idea is, why would someone think of me so negatively because of how I look, because I am different from someone else? So my son turned 12 last week, which is an amazing thing. I started hearing stories about what happens during the preteen stage. I was not expecting that. So it gave me something to look out for. But also, I started to get real sad again. Because as I look at him now, I could see him getting taller. He's almost as tall as I am now. I can hear his voice deepening, and that fear came back like a wave. I'm going to have to sit down and talk again about how to navigate as a young black male in the world. Know your rights, know what to do, be careful. In his 12 years of life, they've been good, but in his 12 years of life, he has been called a monkey. He's been invited to parties, but not have been included in anything because he was the only black kid there. And just recently after George Floyd, there were rumors that people were coming into our predominantly black neighborhood to cause trouble because of everything going on. How can you not have a kid go into your own yard to play? So, when does it end? How do I help my son live a long and healthy life? What tools do I have other than looking at the past, my past, to describe what hope looks like for the future? I normally considered myself pretty boring and uneventful. I grew up in the South in the 70s, outside of North Carolina, and all I knew was Southern hospitality and the really good food. That was the main focus, and we loved it. But as we know, in the 70s, there were some other things that came about. That was the separation. That was the prejudice. So we knew that there are certain neighborhoods we could not go play in. We knew that we were not wanted just by riding down the street and seeing signs with the picture of a Klan saying, "Welcome to North Carolina." I looked at these signs as a young kid, and they asked for assistance with integration and communism. Well, if you don't want me there, where am I supposed to go? Where is my welcome sign? Eventually, the signs were removed. It took a little long, but they were eventually all removed. But it didn't remove it from my mind. The interesting thing is I've never really shared my feelings about these signs until now. So I had to ask my question, why did it take me so long to even share this part of my life? And I had to be honest. It became the norm to see this sign. It became part of my life. It almost became an afterthought. But I do know that it is not the norm, and it should never be an afterthought. As I was growing up in the school system, I didn't see too many teachers or other professionals that looked like me. So I couldn't really relate and see how far I could go. After I graduated high school, I decided to seek my education a little further at a historically black college and university. That was a transition in and of itself. It was a transition that I needed, and I was open arms with it. It helped me become the person that I am here today in front of you. So being a part of Pearl S. Buck International has also been influential to me. To see the passion of the staff, the board, volunteers, and visitors confirms that Pearl Buck was a woman of great insight and who she saw everyone as a human being who is deserving of a fair treatment, equality, and justice. Every time I turn on the path to get to the property, I just am overcome with a sense of calm, a sense of belonging, and it just takes me over every time. And I do know, and I'm content in knowing, at Pearl S. Buck, there is a place that authentically accepts and celebrates all differences. So my tears in the video, they were not just for my son or other people that I know. Those tears were for the past, the present, and the continuous fight for a better world for ourselves and for our children. My tears in the video were for those who do not understand how injustice and hate impacts everyone. I am ready to cry tears of joy when we all stand up together to tear down injustice and prejudice. So although I don't have all of the tools and all of the answers, I do know that I need to use my voice to stand up for injustice, and I need to use the knowledge that I've learned and also learn my rights so I can help with this fight that we have ahead of us. So I want to leave you all today with the question at the end of the passage that I read earlier. Can the child be saved? My answer is 100% a big resounding yes. What is your answer? Thank you all for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you so much for asking the question, for being vulnerable with us so we can learn from your experience as a mom and as an American. And happy birthday to your now 12-year-old son. He has a beautiful smile and clearly a big heart. Clearly the apple did not fall far from the tree. And now I'd like to ask David Navazio, chairman of the board, to come to the stage. He really needs no introduction. You all know who he is. David, I'm turning it over to you.
Wow, Felicia, that was amazing. My name is David Navazzi. I'm the chair of the Pearl S. Buck International Board of Directors. You know, last Thursday, we were in this very tent for the Woman of Influence dinner. Julie Henning so eloquently reminded us why this organization is so important. Children hungry, alone, forgotten, a painful reminder that sometimes we are the only beacon of hope that casts a light in such a dark tunnel. And this afternoon, Felicia carefully reminds us that painful inequities still exist and calls us to order to begin to make this change. Thank you all for coming here today, whether you're joining us in person or from home. The theme of today's event is what America means to me. And you've learned a little bit about what America meant to Pearl S. Buck. And hopefully, you've had the opportunity to think about what America means to you. The opportunities afforded to Pearl Buck in America, especially the opportunities to stand up for, reach out a helping hand to, and be an ally to those without a voice, are part of what led her to found the organization we know as Pearl S. Buck International. You've heard today personal stories about the life-changing impact of Pearl S. Buck International's work and mission. It's my privilege now to ask you to make a financial investment to help us grow and do more than ever before. This is not just an investment in Pearl S. Buck International. It truly is an investment in our future, and I believe it is one of the most important investments that any one of us can make. To build a stronger foundation for expanding our programs and to provide a stable future for Pearl S. Buck International today, we are inviting you to join our Living the Legacy Society. If you've been inspired by what you have seen today, I ask you to consider joining me and my family as a member of our society. Now, some of you are here today, attended this event before, maybe many times before, and have already pledged your support. We sincerely thank you. This afternoon, we invite you to consider paying off your pledge early and or increasing the amount of your pledge. As I go through the levels of giving in our Living the Legacy Society, please note there is a special section on the back of the card for you. Now, at this time, I'd like to ask our table captains, raise your hands. Okay, and if you'll please pass out the pledge cards to everyone at your table. Starting at the top of the card, you'll see 3 pledge options for the Living the Legacy Society. The first giving level, Bridging Cultures, and our work in Bridging Cultures is so important, especially in this day of age, is a pledge of $1,000 a year for 5 years, which is approximately $83 a month. With this gift, we can educate and inspire more young people to explore and appreciate other cultures through initiatives like our high school global leadership program and more. The next level, our Creating Hope level, is a pledge of $5,000 per year for 5 years. This amount allows us to ensure that more children than ever before can stay in school, see a doctor when needed, have enough food on the table, and have hope that they can and will achieve their dreams for a successful future instead of remaining caught in a cycle of poverty. The last level, Changing Lives, is a pledge of $10,000 a year for 5 years. Your gift would allow us to ensure that Pearl S. Buck's life-changing legacy will indeed live on and educate, inspire, and call to action current and future generations, especially young people, to walk in our founders' footsteps and change the lives of those in need here and at home and around the globe. All these donations will provide Pearl S. Buck International with sustainable funding to continue building programs and building lives. If you're joining me today as a member of the Living the Legacy Society, my sincere thanks for your generous support. Although I started by introducing the Living the Legacy Society, we know and respect that you may prefer to give at a different level, so we provide the next opportunity just for you. On that line, please tell us how much you would like to give and for how many years. We truly appreciate whatever level of support you can provide, and we ask that you make the first payment on your pledge today. Perhaps you'd like to consider a gift of stock, a distribution from your IRA, or something else. Or you may have some great ideas for us about programs, outreach to the community in other areas. If so, please check the next block, the one that says, "Please contact me." I have other thoughts to share. For those of you who are joining us via live stream through the Pearl S. Buck International website, there should be a button on your screen to make a donation. If you click on it, it will bring you to a donation page that will be laid out a little different than I just described, but will provide the same giving opportunities. If you have any questions about that or anything else, any comments or suggestions about Pearl S. Buck International's work, please reach out to our Development Director, Heather Harter. Her contact information should be on the web page you're currently viewing. For all of our guests today, please know that whatever you gave, whatever you intend to give, including the gift of your valuable time, we sincerely appreciate on behalf of the children and families we serve. Those here with us in person, when you're finished, please pass your envelope back to your table captain. To all of you who have joined us today, thank you so much. We hope you, your families, and all of your loved ones remain safe. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all of you for your support. We are also grateful to each and every one of you for joining us today in person and from home. We hope you all continue to stay safe and be well. I'm jumping off to head to the Action News studio to put together a consumer guide for voting that's airing this evening. So I hope you'll watch. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thanks again.
I just want to thank everybody again for coming today. And I also want to shout out to my staff because they have done extraordinary work in the last week with 2 major events and everything else that we have going on. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who is here and everyone who is visiting us from home. Have a great day. Thank you.